Okay. Thank you for joining us in our this episode of Exile. As we continue to look into the conditions and the people who are caught in this unique situation whereby they are no longer uh, residents of their place of birth due to a variety of reasons. Today we have joining us Mr. Anderson, who was born in Jamaica and has since made Canada his home.
Yes,
Welcome to the channel.
thank you. Well, I grew up in St. Mary at Islington St. Mary, and I also uh, went to school in Kingston, but my background really started out in St. Mary, and then my parents moved us to Kingston, and I went to school there.
I have known Dayne for many years, and I have a lot of respect for him. He's a very bright person, very talented, and a person of real integrity. So Dayne, welcome to Exile. Welcome to the channel.
Thanks very much.
Welcome to all our viewers, and I invite our viewers, if you like what you're seeing, click the like channel. Certainly, if you don't like what you see, feel free to comment. We are a BS-free zone. We are willing to discuss any viewpoint, and we accept all opinions in the channel. We only ask that people stay within the usual legal boundaries of libel and slander and so on. And we invite our viewers to subscribe, and so they can keep up with what we're doing here. I just wanted to outline the purpose of this channel for our viewers. We are trying to be the voice that the diaspora needs. There are various outlets right now. There's diaspora organizations, there are Facebook pages, but I'm yet to see a media, a modem where we can actually voice what we're saying and speak to the world. So we're trying to be that voice for the diaspora. So welcome, Dayne, and good to see you again.
Thank you.
So first question, why? Why are you here? Why did you emigrate?
Well, when I got married, there was that was a couple years ago. There was like an increase in crime, and my wife and I just felt that it would be better for the future of our children that we live in a society that would have less crime and just a different place, a place where we could, you know, be able to walk freely without worrying about being robbed or other things. So we made a decision just to see, what Canada would be like. We heard about Canada and we had never lived there. So that's really why we emigrated.
And good choice. For the pretty much very same reason I emigrated. I've been shot at twice. I have had other close shaves. I've had to deal with extortion in business and so on. So I know exactly where you're coming from. So welcome to the club. Any regrets?
Well, there are always regrets. My parents were still in Jamaica when I left, and a lot of my friends. But with technology, we were able to still maintain strong relationships. So technology has allowed us, wherever we live, to still be in touch with our family, friends. Yeah.
So I'm glad that, well, I'm not glad, but crime is the main problem in Jamaica in terms of a social problem. I think you would agree, right? And it's
Yes.
been an overriding reason why many of us have fled. I have war stories that would fill a book in terms of crime. No,
Yes.
because I've lived a long time and I emigrated late because I reluctantly left.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't know me then, but I had a successful family business like yourself. And so, and you had you were successful in your career, you're very well educated and so on. And so it's a loss to Jamaica. You leaving, even if people might think my leaving is not such a loss, but certainly like you leaving is a talented, very educated person like yourself has to leave her country because feels impelled to leave a country, right? Um, for your not only for yourselves but for your children's future.
Well,
So
the thing that seems to be maybe not so clear to those that are born and raised in Canada and these more privileged positions is that the reason that Dayne left Jamaica was not so much for economic reasons or anything. It's for the basics of life, which is just safety, to be secure, and that should not be something that you have to leave your home, family, and your heritage for, right?
exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure, Dan, I'm sure you were not poor, and you were not you were successful. And from what you've told me, you were. I know in my case, I had a successful family business. We had 20 odd fleet of 20 odd vehicles. That supported, probably 20 odd families. We're talking probably close to 100 people. And when we closed it down, they're all out of work, right? I remember our staff, there were tears. People were crying when I said goodbye.
Yeah.
So good. So we're gonna go back to the issue of crime because that's a pet peeve, I think, for both of us. And but before we do that, I'm just curious. You don't have to give us any gory details or specifics, but basically overall, what you're doing now. I think let's give us an overview. You're in business, I think, and so on.
Yeah. I'm also a teacher, so I
And you're
teach
doing
students.
consulting and some teaching online and those kind of things.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
So okay. So the big elephant in the room is the coronavirus in Jamaica. And we have been talking on this channel a lot about that, and that this tsunami of social and economic turmoil and hardship and death is bringing to the world to a tipping point. And Jamaica in particular, according to the IMF, is going to be very, very, very hard hit. How do you see Jamaica moving forward? We've had the election. Before we get to crime as a specific, overall, what direction you see Jamaica needs to move to deal with this crisis? We've had the election. What now?
Yeah, I think it's a difficult question. We're caught between a rock and a hard place because we want to open our borders because, our GDP is really affected by tourism. So if we don't have tourism, if we don't have persons in the United States and Canada and other countries like the UK providing transfers, then we're kind of forced into the position of opening the borders. And we don't have the resources to properly monitor the COVID-19 cases. So it's a hard situation. The only thing I could say is that the health department would have to, hire more people to be able to monitor the potential cases. I saw in the news where there has been an increase, constant, rapid increase in the last month and a half. So definitely we're in a crisis, and unfortunately, we were not really embracing online, even work from home. We weren't embracing internet-based businesses. So we're trying to play catch up, and you can't just play catch up with that. You have to have had that in the pipeline. So we're still relying on our traditional services and the BPOs now, I guess, the call centers, which are not really high-paid jobs either way, but they do provide some level of jobs. And they have now moved to work from home, which is great, which is what they should have been doing from day one, either way. Because the warehouse concept is really a flawed concept in our country, Jamaica, because we have so many overheads. Electricity is so expensive because we import oil, and same thing with water. So those major things really affect us in terms of productivity and bottom line for companies, as well as, of course, the elephant in the room, which is security, crime. So it all comes around to the same thing again.
We have two
crime.
elephants now.
Well, if, so we have COVID and crime
Yeah,
in the background.
the two C's, yeah.
Yeah, so as a person who tracks, the markets as a trader and someone who is in the sphere of like the stock exchange and stuff, I can see the massive drop in stocks.
Hmm.
So Jamaica it's not looking good for us. We'll likely have to go back to the IMF
Hmm.
and get more money because I don't know where the money is coming from. I mean, tourism has already seen a 30% drop since the increase in COVID-19 cases in the last month and a half. So we're really in a tight situation, and even the payouts that they have given to persons, the COVID relief, is really a joke when you look at what it costs someone to buy a chicken in Jamaica. It's really not. It's just for me, it's like a nice election promise that really, for the ordinary man, I mean, 25,000 or whatever the figure was, is really, that's like 1 week of groceries for a family, if a basic grocery basket.
Hmm.
So I
Um,
think Jamaica is in a tough situation. Yeah.
like as an outsider who's not very familiar with Jamaican makeup, you would assume that island in the Caribbean with maybe 2 million odd citizens, there should be sufficient agricultural or farm and food stuff. But you're
Yeah.
saying that a lot of that is also imported.
Yes, because my family were in farming for probably over 100 years, and farming is really not that big in Jamaica. We kind of fool ourselves into believing that we actually do effective farming, but we really don't.
Yeah, we,
Because
mhm.
if someone sees me doing oranges, they go and do oranges, right? Instead of
Mm.
trying to do several different types of foods. Yeah, we have come a long way, but we really don't have the land space to produce what's needed for Jamaica. We can't compete with Mexico or California, or all these places. So yeah, we might have agriculture, but um, the farmers are really not. We don't have a lot of good farmers because it doesn't pay a lot, and there's a lot of stealing. So right back to crime again. We suffered a lot. My family suffered a lot from people stealing our stuff, constantly.
Exactly. Exactly.
So it all comes right back to crime.
Yeah, if we don't deal with crime, we can forget everything else.
Hmm.
Because agriculture is, first of all, done very inefficiently in Jamaica. How we market produce in Jamaica is you move a 200-pound higgler with their stuff to the market, and
Yes.
then the housewives come there and buy their stuff. Um, that is not how you do
No.
agriculture in this modern day and age. So we're doing it like how post-slavery it was done. I
And
mean,
that's going.
we
Just
still
want to make.
don't we still have market trucks? I think you left after me.
Yeah.
We have
I
still
just
have
want to.
market trucks.
I want to make a point that
Yeah.
there are some niche products that we could do,
Hmm.
like coconut oil,
Hmm.
because that's something huge, and we probably have the best in the world.
Hmm.
But again, it comes back to our farming practices were very poor in Raymond's time, for example. So we end up having disease to our coconuts, which is
Hmm.
still affecting us.
I remember that.
So they haven't even eliminated the disease. So whereas we could be using coconuts, for example, to produce a lot of money in terms of exports, we're still not producing enough, to go overseas.
Yeah. To be,
So
yeah.
there are niche things that we can do,
Mhm.
but we're just
You
not
were
doing it.
you were also mentioning that they import a lot of oil for energy. That's for power generation.
Yes, power generation, fuel for vehicles, but especially GPS, right?
Yeah, that's the
Like
big one, GPS.
that's a big one.
Yeah. So the thing
Yeah.
is, you see, to give credit, fair credit to the economic planners, the pre-COVID economic wisdom was that countries should specialize in what they're good at.
Hmm.
That was the prevailing economic wisdom at the time, whether it's, I think, well, certainly in Jamaica, and I think coming from the IMF too, probably and the World Bank. So we were good for tourism, it seemed. So the whole focus of everything was, it was an easy industry, as Asa said, to just wallowing,
Hmm.
and to the neglect of other things, I think. And so we end up with this one-legged economy, and COVID hits, and then the wisdom gone out the window.
Yeah, 30% of our GDP comes from tourism. The rest comes from 20% is in the same service industry. So you have 50% of your economy dependent on tourism remittances. It's just not sustainable in a crisis like this. This is a deep recession, and to be honest, the leaders have not been very honest to just say it. It is what it is. We're in a deep recession, and
Right.
prepare the people for what's to come. The bitter medicine, as they used to call it, when another Jamaica college old boy used to say that in Parliament.
So,
I
so
know Raymond knows who that is.
yeah, we won't go there. You know, so you're saying the IMF is probably going to have to be the way forward, but yet the JLP has said, or Mr. Holness in particular has said, and Nigel Clark has said, they're not going to the IMF. So is
Okay.
it possible? I think can they go to the international market and borrow their way through the crisis and create this illusion that of which was done in the past, where
But
you're
I think
borrowing to create. You live on the credit card, right?
right. I
Eh?
think the previous party did an excellent job with the IMF
Mhm.
in terms of preparing this party to pay it off, and to leave the IMF. So I think if it's needed, it's just needed. It's just like you taking a loan from a bank. What's the problem? Like, um, we're gonna have to borrow from somewhere. So
And the
why
IMF,
not the
yeah,
IMF?
the thing is, the IMF take a bit of your sovereignty. Them say you have to spend this way, you have to do this, and you have to behave fiscally. And I'm not so sure if they like the IMF manners, right? And the IMF has bad press too in Jamaica.
Well, I think the IMF keeps us on track in terms of what we
I agree.
need to do.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I agree totally. The thing is, the IMF has a bad rap in Jamaica because it was used as a political football at one time. And
Hmm.
secondly, the blame is given to the IMF when the blame is really our fault. Like we end
Yes.
up needing an IMF in the first place.
Hmm.
Anyway, so you're saying the way forward will be, whether they like it or not, as we have been saying on this channel, is they're going to have to borrow, correct?
Yes. There's no other way.
Right.
Um,
Okay.
you just saw what was it? I think there's a shortage of chickens right now. So things
Hmm.
are getting a bit tricky with certain
Yeah.
things.
So they
So
have to hurry up
we
and
need
borrow.
foreign exchange,
Yeah. Yeah, because the illusion was maintained to win the election that everything is going to be rosy, all is going to be fine and dandy. Yeah, sorry, I think I cut you. So you wanted to say something. I apologize.
Well, no, that's fine. One of the big criticism that has been in the media was the fact that those countries who have been caught behind the curve on this COVID-19 pandemic were countries where their leaders have downplayed the impact that the pandemic was going to have.
Mhm.
And I couldn't help but notice that looking at the manifestos and the campaigns that of the political parties from Jamaica, that both parties were downplaying it. And according to Raymond, from his contacts in Jamaica, was that up to very recently, you're still getting people gathering in crowds for gatherings for various reasons, and the infection rates have just continued to skyrocket. Even though at one point in time Jamaica the had the pandemic more or less under control when they shut the borders.
Mhm.
And when they open the borders and start to try to bring in some revenue from their one true industry, then the infection rate just start to escalate.
Right. So, okay. So, crime. Everything is coming back to this next elephant in the room, crime. Um, Dan, you seem to indicate you have some ideas as to unique ways we can fight crime in Jamaica that we're not doing right now.
Yes, I think we have to use what we have currently. Um, but we need to change some laws. So I think taxation will be a great way to fight crime, because there are lots of tax evaders in Jamaica who may be criminals. And I think we should be utilizing the tax department to fight crime, working with the police, of course, because they have to work together. But I think the penalties need to be stronger. The prison terms need to be stronger in order to get the right results. So if I know someone is a criminal and I can pull up his tax information and I can say to him that, how did you get this money, right? I can now trace, I can now have a case against that person.
Mhm.
And this was done by the IRS with the mafia,
And Al
where they
Capone
use,
too, if
and
I,
Al Capone,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So they use tax evasion as a way to stop criminals.
yeah.
So I think we need to, we need to start using the tax department more effectively for crime fighting.
Mhm.
And
No, sorry, go ahead.
sorry,
No, you go ahead.
yeah. So that's one method,
Mhm.
in terms of using tax department and using technology on our roads. Using in Canada we use a lot of radars, a lot of modern, equipment like drones and stuff. So, but definitely for road violations, we need to have photo radars. But then again, they have to change the laws because when a person moves to a new address, that has to be tracked.
Mhm.
So we're thinking now onto the NIDS system, which
The
the
National
Prime Minister,
Identification System for
right.
those who don't know. Yeah.
So the Prime Minister has said he wants to push that forward, Prime Minister Andrew Holness.
Mhm.
So he has said he wants to push, which I think is very good. And that will allow us to probably change those traffic laws to make it mandatory that if you move, you have to report your address. And that will now enable us to launch into this photo radars, speeding cams, all of these things to give the police more freeway, more, so they can focus more on other crimes and not so much on road violations, because that's a lot of time spent, with people sitting in cars and stuff where they could be using technology on the highways, byways, and even the towns. So those are two things. The NIDS is critical to fighting crime and to also being able to, allow us to properly monitor our citizens. So I think it's
Would
critical.
would you agree that part of the reason it was so hard for Jamaica to deal with this crime scene or the crime wave that seems to be prevalent is that there is a high deal of corruption that allowed the criminals to get away or to evade the law?
Yes, in my experience with the tax department of Jamaica, we saw, many cases. I saw many cases of corruption at different levels. Whether it's be in certain sectors of the economy, there is corruption. There's heavy corruption. You see people driving all different types of vehicles, but you question like where do they get the money to buy these things? And once you start questioning, I just think that we have failed to really investigate um, the persons in Jamaica who we suspect might be corrupt. So that needs to be addressed. We have an integrity commission, but I haven't really heard of any major case that they have cracked in terms of corruption.
Yeah, when we talk of crime in Jamaica, most people are thinking about the dirty gunman, the guy who come up and stick you up, hold you up, rob the supermarket, whatever, shoot people, hit men, them kind of thing. What you are proposing is going higher up the food chain. You're talking about some top people in the country, in government, private sector, public sector, who you're going catch in this net, correct? If
Yeah,
it's going to happen.
I mean the person who the gunman cannot, like, some of these criminals can't afford a gun, right? So where are they getting the guns from? So in my experience, in my training, For you to effectively fight any crime, you have to find the head of the crime, the head of the organization, and that's the only way. The military will tell you this, the police will tell you this. If you don't chop off the head, you haven't been effective.
But what do you do if when they, I think I'm more than one head, to be honest. What do you do when the heads of these prominent positions in the society, in the public sector, in the political arena, I suspect, because for some reason some politicians are not getting, their visas have been revoked.
Yes.
The US must know something we don't, or we may know, but it ain't being said.
Well,
And then there's
you
people in private sector too, high up people probably involved. Those
you
people
go back.
are untouchable in the past.
Well, you do like the IRS. What the IRS does is they make examples. So the IRS will go after a Martha Stewart, for example, or Wesley Snipes. So they make it known that you're not above the law. You're not above being arrested if you are caught. So
Yes.
that's what you have to do. You have to set examples right away.
Yeah, but
Show the man in the street that it's not just him.
yeah. Okay, they have Zoom has given me a gift. We have this. We're going to be cut out, so it's okay.
Well,
We have an extra 40 minutes of time.
Okay,
Well,
I don't think
there's,
I'll have so much time, but
Yeah, you don't have that much, and we won't be much longer.
No.
We'll resume
Yeah.
taping now. So we're talking about the untouchables, eh? And you're saying using the tax thing to go after them. Okay, you're gonna do, are you, like, for example, has Mr. Bolton, his entourage, been charged with anything under the Disaster Management Act?
well, my understanding is that they did have a permit to be there. It's for a protocol. So that's what I have read.
We have video that they did not follow protocol. I saw the videos. There was not. No, I know Mr. Bolt is a beloved person in Jamaica, and I think he's the greatest runner ever. That being said, we're talking about untouchables here and setting examples. I mean, we can't even charge these people because they are icons. So how are we going to, and I know there's people bigger heads than him in Jamaica, the Bolt is small fry to them. How are we going to go after those people if we can't even arrest the Usain Bolts and their entourages for anything and charge them?
I think that's a trick. Go ahead.
Well, the thing is, I think the crime issue has been around for a long time, right? As long as you could remember, both Raymond and Dayne, right?
And I'm old enough to remember a time before the crime was so bad.
Yeah.
You're right.
And the solutions are not that mysterious as you see examples all over the world whereby, like you say, as far back as Al Capone, he was hunted down by the IRS. But at that time, there was a political will. There was a public outcry because the mafia had just basically ruled the cities, right? So there was a public outcry and there was a political will. Therefore, then the wheels went in motion and Al Capone was snagged. However, given that what you've described, and there seems to be some obvious examples that the public probably is aware of corruption and otherwise, but there doesn't seem to be that political will that exists in the Jamaican society right now to move in that direction.
I'll tell you why. I mean, first of all, unless you have force from the civil society, it ain't gonna happen. Because I gotta say this, the politicians themselves, a lot of them are criminals. Them just ain't been charged, they ain't been caught, but a lot of them are thief. A lot of them, I think some of them have been involved in conspiracies for murder. I'm saying this, I don't care. Who vex can vex.
Well, allegedly.
Most of the I have not called any names. I'm just saying most of the politicians in Jamaica are involved in skullduggery, theft, corruption, nepotism, and in some instances, I believe it goes as far as murder. And I'm going to say that, and who vex, one vex can vex. And I'm not talking about either, I'm saying both sides. I was involved in politics for many years in Jamaica up to my neck in it. And I know I met the gunmen. I know of the associations. I know who friend with gunmen. I know who gunman work for in the past, and so on. So they have a very sordid history. And so I don't think they themselves are going to be the originator. Mr. saying, yeah, I'm going to do this and that. Bull, BS. I'm not going to, it's BS.
In light of these viewpoints about corruption that seems to be quite prevalent in Jamaica, um, how can Prime Minister Hollis take advantage of his majority? And I do sense that he has intent of moving Jamaica into a better space. How can he, or can he? Maybe he may not be able to, but how do you see this play out? Or are we just going to the same old show as before with different actors?
Dayne, you want to say before I say anything? Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, definitely you have to see action. We have been having lots of talk in the past, but now we need to see the action. So, you know, everybody knows what's required, but do we have the will to do it?
Yeah. Oh, that's the
And
question.
as we point out earlier, that the mafias of the prohibition era, they were finally put in their place when the general public, there was a large outcry. They did not feel that it was right for these mafia individuals to cause that kind of unharnessed or unchecked crime to the public.
Mhm.
So you think something like that might happen in Jamaica?
Yeah, Dayne, I'm just to be a little more specific, Dayne. How do you touch these? Okay, you have a strategy here. How do you get the foxes who thieving from the hen house to take away the key and get rid of them, lock them up, shoot the foxes or put them in prison or whatever? How do you
Yeah,
do?
as I suggested, there needs to be a complete breakaway from finance department.
Mhm.
It needs to be like the IRS is a federal agency. It doesn't fall under the arm of the president, for example. So there needs to be a separation of all, and that's the way you'll see where people can have the freedom to actually do their job effectively.
Mhm.
If you have politicians over you trying to do your job under constantly, over you, it makes it very difficult. The director general needs to have the power to act without a finance department. So that's just my opinion.
So you would remove them from the enforcement and the tax department from the tax department itself,
Yes,
because the tax department falls under Ministry of Finance. So you'd have to
right.
them
You'd
up,
have to change all of that
set
structure.
them up as a separate law enforcement,
Almost an executive agency.
a law enforcement agency. Okay,
Yeah.
I
Hmm.
see.
With powers like the police.
Okay.
Because the IRS does have the powers of the police. They carry guns, they carry badges,
Mhm.
they do have extraordinary powers.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent suggestion. We're coming to the end of our allotted time. Asa, would you like to say anything before we wind up?
Well, I mean, given that we had identified earlier previous programs saying that crime crime itself is basically a parasite on society. They latch onto society and drain it out of resources and productivity with no account and no reinvestment back into society. So if you want the country to grow forward, you have to get rid of the parasites.
Mhm.
And corruption, we see it as rot within the political structure or the societal structure. So if you want to build a future, you
Mhm.
cannot build on rot. So therefore, these two elements definitely have to be addressed. And you have shown us that there is very viable ways of addressing it. Now we need the political will. Where will that political will come from? Because those who are at the trough are not going to say, "Well, excuse me,
Yeah,
I'm on the, I'm
I'll step
feeding
back.
very well, but I think I'll give it up." I mean, that's not likely.
Yeah. So
So we
it's
need the political will to arise from somewhere.
Mhm.
to take the problem, the bull by the horns,
Yeah.
and clear off these two impediments to Jamaica's future.
Yeah, so it comes back to, in summary, it comes back to what we've been saying on this channel, and Dayne strategies, another one with suggested strategies, that this thing has to come, this force has to come from civil society, all sectors. We're talking the hotel industry, GHTA, private sector,
The
JME,
church.
church, the diaspora. I think the diaspora can be a very important element because we're removed from Jamaica. Them can't too trouble us, yaso. I can talk how I talking now because I yaso. If I was ever in Jamaica on a platform talking like how I'm calling them thief and so, me not dead long time. Me dead long time. Me know say certain politician me not call the name. They hug up gunman in the Jamaica Empire. Them a thief and them a thief and certain man are. Anyway, let's not go into the gory details. My name is Raymond Grant. My co-host has been Asa Sue, and our special guest today has been Dayne Anderson. Thank you so much, Dayne.